Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chaf, Daf 20 of Masechta Pesachim. The beginning of the Daf we talk about Kodashim meat becoming tamei. How can Kodashim meat be muchshir lekabel tumah? And then we talk about more Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi stuff. And then on Amud Beis we talk about different questions and answers. Is that clear? Yeah, I know, but literally it's like Rami, like whatever. They're like literally saying this Tana or this Amora asked a question and answered it. Well, so that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, we're going to get started here on Daf Chaf, 2 lines into the page. Ve'abasur tamei nu chever. What's this talking about? So we had said yesterday that if you have a situation where you find like you shecht an animal and in the animal there's like a needle, so we say that like the meat is tamei, but your hands and your knife are not. Remember that? Good. So v'abasur tamei. So it says, okay, so you have this tamei, like needle in the meat, so the meat is tamei. So the question is, as we know, of course, in order for something to be tamei, it has to be muchshir lekabel tumah, right? Things don't just become tamei. They first have to come in contact with water. Once they come in contact with water, well, food, right? Food needs to come in contact with water. Once it's come in contact with water, even if it dries up afterwards, but once it's come in contact with water for the first time, it's muchshir lekabel tumah, it can become tamei. Fine. But the question is, this meat, when did it come in contact with water? So Yinema, v'abasur tamei, habasur diskasha b'mai. How did it become muchshir lekabel tumah? Yinema diskasha b'dam. Maybe you'll say, well, blood. Meat is like lives in a very bloody environment. So, mistameh became muchshir lekabel tumah from its blood. But as we saw the other day, Reb Chia bar Abba says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, how do we know that the blood of korbanis is not machshir lekabel tumah? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, lo sochlenu, do not eat the blood, alar tishbechenu kamoyim, spill it out on the floor. Dam shenishbach kamoyim. Now that, of course, is not talking about korbanos. It's just talking about, I think, just regular meat. So dam shenishbach kamoyim machshir. So blood that you spill out on the floor, that is what would be considered mashke, that could be machshir ochlin lekabel tumah. V'sheinu nishbach kamoyim, but blood like kodashim meat that you don't just spill it on the floor, rather you receive it in a kli and then you throw it on the mizbeach. So eino machshir, that blood is not machshir lekabel tumah. So blood of korbanos is not machshir lekabel tumah. So then how did the meat of this animal become muchshir lekabel tumah? Well, maybe the mashkin beis matbechai, maybe the water that they have over there in the temple butchery. But Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina said, mashkin beis matbechai lo dayin shein dachan. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, not only are the mashkin in the butchery pure, el shein machshirin, they're not machshir other things the kabel tumah. Okay, so still, we're searching for a way that this meat was able to be susceptible to receiving tumah in the first place. So the Gemara says, alright, well, so it became muchshir lekabel tumah just because it is so beloved, right? It's chibas hakodesh, it's kodashim, we give it special status, and that is what made it muchshir lekabel tumah. But Emer demahani le chibas hakodesh leifsule gufe. I'll say that this whole, special treatment of kodashim works to say that it can contract tumah to be possible. But the mimna beirishon v'sheni nami, would we say that not only does this special status of kodashim make it able to become tamei, but it can even impart tumah on other things? Do we take it that far that just inherently this meat is able to become is muchshir lekabel tumah, but not just to be possible, but even to spread it to other things? So Tifsho Debai, where am I? Tifsho Debai Rish Lakish, if that were the case, that due to the special beloved status of kodashim, they are considered muchshir lekabel tumah, they're significant enough, they're able to become tamei, and not only that, but even to spread tumah, well then, here's our answer for Rish Lakish's quandary. If you have a korban mincha, a flour offering, so you take a whole bunch of flour, you mix it with a whole bunch of oil, and you're going to put some of it on the mizbeach. So now, if there's like some flour that didn't get oil on it, it's just kind of dry flour and left over in the bowl. So, monin borishon v'sheni olo. Do we say that is able to spread tumah or not? And we don't have an answer for Reish Lakish, but if we're going to say here that just inherently Kodashim have this thing that's called chibas hakodesh, the sort of love of, or a special place in our hearts for Kodashim, so they have a special status, so therefore they're able to be mukhshir lekabel tumah inherently, and we want to say that means that they can even spread tumah. Well, then we have our answer for Reish Lakish, who was wondering about these menachis, if they're able to spread tumah. But since we don't have an answer for Reish Lakish, so we cannot just assume that this meat is inherently able to spread tumah. So, Amr of Yehuda, Amr Shmuel Kegon, Shaisa Parish Zivchei Shlamim. So it says of Yehuda in the name of Shmuel that, well, this was talking about this animal was a Shlamim korban, Ve'avir Benar, and its owner was bringing it to the Beis HaMikdash, and he brought it by way of a river. B'shachta, and then he shechted it, v'adayin mashke tofeach aleh, and it was still wet from the river. And then, so basically, shortly before this animal was slaughtered, it was hanging out in some water, and therefore there was still some water like on its body. And then when you slaughtered the animal, some of that water that was on its body got on the meat, and that is how the meat was mukhshir lekabel tumah. Got it? Good. Nimtzeis b'peresh. Ooh. What if this needle wasn't found in the meat? Instead, it was found in the excrement. Hakol tahor. Well, then everything is tahor. The meat's tahor, the hands are tahor, the knife is tahor. V'ni'ad peresh v'nitami lebasar. But 1 second. But if the needle was found in the excrement, well, then the excrement should be tahor, and then it should be mitami the meat. So Ravada bar Ahava b'ferish ova. Oh. So says Ravada bar Ahava, it's talking about thick excrement. Very beautiful. Ravashi Amar says Ravashi afilu tema b'perish raka. Ravashi says you can even say it's talking about thin excrement. Mishum dahavi mashke saruach, but it's kind of disgusting mashke, so therefore it wouldn't be considered a mashke that would spread tumah to meat. Alright, very nice. Tani Tana Kamidu of Sheshes. So here's an interesting little thing. So a certain teacher taught in front of Sheshes, Sheretz Mitame es Hamashkin, that a sheretz. Now listen to this. This is kind of new. It's going to seem a little weird, and it is a little weird, and we're going to unweird it a little bit in a minute. So sheretz Mitame es Hamashkin. So if you have a dead sheretz, so that dead sheretz could be Mitame Mashkin. Umashkin Mitamin es a kli. Okay, and then a kli, this mashkin can then be mitame a kli, which we specifically said the other day it cannot do. Okay, seder. Uchli mitame sa ochlin, and then the kli can be mitame ochlin, va'ochlin mitame sa mashkin, and then ochlin can be mitame mashkin, and then he continues, v'lamadnu shalosh tumos b'sheretz, and we learned 3 tumas by a sheretz. Now, okay, aside from the fact that like what the heck just happened, but hani arba'ahin. Just the fact is, he just said that there are that we just listed 3 tumas by sheretz, but the truth is we just listed 4 of them, right? There was the sheretz, and then there was the kli, there was sheretz was mitame the mashkin, which was mitame the kli, which was then mitame ochlim, which was then mitame mashkin. That's 4 things. Why is he saying there's 3? So like, what the heck is going on here? So many questions. Like, what's the deal? The mashkin's being mitame the kli. I thought that's not allowed. He's saying there are 3 things now, but really listed 4 things. Who could tell me what's going on over here? Because I don't know. I'm just going to give up. So the Gemara answers, goes mashkin dereisha. So the Gemara says, look, the first one doesn't fit. Rather, understand it like this. You have a sheretz. The sheretz, so now get rid of that first mashkin thing. It doesn't make any sense. You have a sheretz. The sheretz is mitame a kli. Okay, great. The kli is mitame ochel. Okay, great, classic. And then the ochel is mitame mashkin. That's really the only chiddush but that's like Rabbi Akiva. If we put this into Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi terms, so basically you have a sheretz, which is an avatuma, is touching a kli, which is making a kli Rishon l'tuma. The kli is then touching food, which then becomes a Sheni l'tuma. So all of that, basically, there's no chidushim over here. Now this is where there's a shtickle chiddush, which is that then he's saying that the ochel is then tamei mashkin, to be a shlishi. So that, of course, though, would be like Rabbi Akiva, right? Rabbi Akiva said that yitma, yitame, that you can even have a shlishi by chulin. So beseder, it's not such a big chiddush. It's like Rabbi Akiva, and those are our 3 tumas by the sheretz, right? There's the kli, there's the ochel, there's the mashke. Got it? Weiter. Adrabah goes mashkin to seifa. So now the Gemara says, wait, why are we getting rid of the first, right? Meaning, we had a problem over here. We had 4 items, and yet we're supposed to only have 3. So we said get rid of the first one, right? That mashkin can be mitame kli. But why don't we leave that in place? Why don't we get rid of the last mashkin and just say you have sheretz being mitame mashkin, which is mitame a kli, which is mitame ochel, and then just drop the last mashkin thing. So l'ashka chantana damar mashkin mitame kli elu Yehuda v'hader bei. So the Gemara answers, no, that wouldn't really make sense, because I'm going to read that again. Lo ashkechan tana, because we don't find any tana to Amar Mashkin Mitamin Kli who says that mashkin can be Mitame Kli. We just don't see it. Elu Rabbi Yehuda v'haderbe. The only time you ever saw that was initially Rabbi Yehuda's opinion on Tezayin Amud Aleph, that he said that mashkin can be Mitame Kalim and Ochlin Mida Oraisa. But we had then said that actually he reneged. So therefore, it would make sense to say that the mashkin being mitame the kli is the one that we're going to remove. V'simonech nazyasa. Interesting. If you want to remember this whole what did I call it yesterday? Cascading tuma. Yeah, it's like CSS, right? HTML and CSS, cascading style sheets. Yeah. Where are you guys at with CSS? You still use it? I feel like you don't really write so much CSS anymore. Usually, I don't know, whenever I write CSS now, it's like usually like just JavaScript. But it's all based on CSS. Alright, let's go weiter. So alright, v'simanech nasyasa. And the way to remember this is the beer, right? So if nasyasa is like beer, like, yeah, B-E-E-R. So like, I guess if you make beer, I don't make beer. My friend Donnie Friedenberg, he makes beer. It's very good. Yeah, he's going to make a whole thing one day. It's going to be nice. Anyway, so I guess apparently when you make beer, first you have the kli, and then in the kli you put the food, I guess like the hops or something. Then you add like water, I guess, and then you get beer. Tanan awesome. We learn over there, sheretz shenimtza betoner. If you have a sheretz in an oven, okay, hapasha b'socho shnia. So the bread that's in it is a sheni l'tuma. Mipnei shatanu tchila, because the oven is a rishon l'tuma, right? Classic. This is all just, it's like chazara for us basically, right? You have a oven, you take a sheretz, you dangle it in the oven becomes a rishon, right? And then the bread that's slapped onto the wall of the oven becomes a sheni. Okay, no big chidushim over here. Amalei Rav Ada bar Ahava the Rava, but now Rav Ada bar Ahava asks Rava. Now, I don't know if I said this the other day, but there must be 2 Rav Ada bar Ahavas, because Rav Ada bar Ahava was a student of Rav. Yeah, I think I said this the other day. And over here we keep on saying Rav Ada bar Ahava, like talking to Rava. There must have been 2 of them. So maybe you guys were thinking the same question. I'm pretty sure I've thought of the same question as well, which is, why is the bread a sheni l'tuma? Why don't we just view it as when this sheretz is dangling inside the oven, it's basically filling up the whole oven with tuma, and therefore just like the oven becomes a rishon, anything in the oven should also be a rishon. Everything should be a rishon. It's all being sort of, it's like the sheretz is like emitting, is like radiating tuma. So Amrle lo sakadaiter. So Rava says no, don't, that wouldn't be correct. The Tanya, because we learn in a brayso yachol you call a kelim mitamen me'aver klicheres. So if you have a vessel in a klicheres with vitame, meaning, let's say you're dangling this sheretz in this oven, and let's say you have like another kli inside of the oven. So would we say that the kli that's in the oven would become tamei? Tamlomo kol asher b'socho yitma. So therefore the pasuk says that anything inside the oven will be tamei. V'samach and it says right after that mikola ochel, and then it says all of the food. Ochel mitamei ma'aver klicheres that food that is in an oven becomes tamei, but vessels that is in an oven do not become tamei. And if we were to say that we view it as though the oven is filled up with tumah, well then it should be matame the kelim as well, right? Because a sheretz is an avatum, it's matame kelim. From the fact that we say that if when you dangle a sheretz inside an oven, it's matame the food that's in there, but not the kelim, it must mean that we're talking about rishon level tumah, i.e. that the sheretz, which is an avatum, makes the oven tamei to be a rishon tumah, and then anything that is touching the oven, such as the bread that's slapped on the wall, will become a sheni. But if you have like other kelim in the oven, they would not be tamei, because kelim can only become tamei from an avatuma, and we're saying that anything in the oven is becoming tamei not from the sheretz, but from the oven, which is a rishon tumah, and kelim do not become tamei from a rishon tumah. Zok the Gemara, Rav Chizda Rami, Rav Chizda asked the kasha. Rav Chizda Rami Pischa Pischa Mishani. Rav Chizda, he asked the kasha from Korban Pesach to Korban Pesach, and he answered it. Meaning that Rabbi Yoshua in our Mishnah says, right? Rabbi Yossi responded to Rabbi Meir way back when on Daf Yudalid in this Mishnah of Rabbi Chanina's Kana Kohanim. Rabbi Yossi had said that Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer both agree that you may not burn Truma Tahora with Truma Tamei. The only place where they argue is regarding Truma Tluya and Truma Tamei. Okay? That you would be able to burn together, that according to Rabbi Yoshua, you could burn together Truma Tluya, Truma that you're unsure if it's Tamei or Tahor, you can burn that together with Truma Tamei. Rabbi Eliezer says that you may not. So we have a question about that. So, does Rabbi Yoshua really say that you would be able to burn them together? Right? Meaning, and this is talking about on Erev Pesach, right? Would you be able to burn them together on Erev Pesach? So, V'aminu. But we have a contradiction. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, we already saw this. We're going to see a lot of brises now that are like kind of chazar. We're going to see a number of brises that we've seen already over the past week. So, in Anidon Doma L'Raya. So, Reb Meir, of course, had said that you're allowed to burn Truma Torah with Truma Tmeya and Erev Pesach. And Reb Yossi retorts and says, how do you learn that from our Mishnah? The rabbis in our Mishnah, Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim, Rabbi Akiva, what were they talking about? If you're talking about Reb Chanina, who's talking about meat that became tamei from a vlada tumah, which we said was a sheni l'tumah, the meat was a shlishi l'tumah, that you could burn it together with a rishon l'tumah. Zetame v'zetame. Well, they're both tamei in that case. If you're going to be talking about oil that became tamei from a tvul yom, i.e. a shlishi, that you are burning together with a candle that became tamei from an avatuma, and we said that it was metal, and therefore it was an avatuma, whatever it is. But zepasav is tamei. Still, in that case, they're both right. One's pasul and one's tamei. We also agree, Reb Meir, that if you have truma that became tamei from a vlada tumah, that you could burn it together with truma that became tamei from an avatuma. But Reb Meir, how in the world are you saying that you're allowed to burn truma tahora with truma tamei, because you can't even burn truma teluya with truma tamei? Truma that you're not sure if it's tamei or tahor, you can't even burn that with truma tamei. Because what happens if Eliyahu Navi comes and then deems them tahor? Well, then you just burnt truma tahor with truma tamei, so you can't even do that. So, on the one hand, we have Rabbi Yoshua in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi is saying that we have Rabbi Yoshua in our Mishnah, or really we have Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah who's saying that Rabbi Yoshua says that you would be allowed to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya, and yet Rabbi Yossi in this brisa is just saying that apparently, according to everybody, you would be unable to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya. So what's going on? Harib Shimon v'alibad Rabbi Yoshua, Harib Yossi v'alibad Rabbi Yoshua. Interesting. So the Gemara says, well, our Mishnah actually that says that Rabbi Yoshua says that you would be allowed to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya is actually Rabbi Shimon explaining Rabbi Yoshua, whereas the brisa is Rabbi Yossi explaining Rabbi Yoshua. Let's see. The Tanya is we learn in the brisa Yadal Shecholios b'Shabbos. If Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, Mevarin es hakol milifnei Shabbos. So you have to burn all the chametz before Shabbos begins on the 13th. V'sarfen trumas tmeis tluyas u'tohoris to Reb Meir. Reb Meir says that you can just burn everything together. Truma, tahora, tluya, tmeya, everything. Reb Yossi Omer says the holy Reb Yossi. Tahora b'fnei atzma, v'tluya b'fnei atzma, v'tmeya b'fnei atzma. You have to burn everything separately. You have to burn the truma tahora separate, the tluya separate, the tmeya separate. Omer Reb Shimon, says Reb Shimon, lo nechliku Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, ala tahora v'ala tmeya she'ein sarfin. So says Reb Shimon that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua agree that when it comes to truma tahora and truma tmeya, that you cannot burn them together. Ala tluya v'ala tahora she'sarfin. And that if you have truma tluya and truma tahora, you can burn them together. Amma nechliku, where do they argue? Ala tluya v'ala tmeya. On truma that you're uncertain about, as well that can you burn that together with truma that you know is tamei. Rabbi Eliezer Omer tisarv zobatzma v'zobatzma. Rabbi Eliezer says you have to burn them separately. Rabbi Yeshua Omer shtein ka'achas. Rabbi Yeshua says you can burn them together. Oh, no. So what just happened? What just happened is that we see that Reb Shimon is explaining to Rabbi Yoshua that you're allowed to burn truma tluya together with truma tmeya on Erev Pesach. So we want to say that our Mishnah, who says the same exact thing as that, is Reb Shimon explaining Rabbi Yoshua. Says the Gemara, "V'amas nitzin Rabbi Yossi." But our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, right? That was the whole thing. Reb Meir says you're allowed to burn truma tahora with truma tmeya, to which Rabbi Yossi responds and says even Rabbi Yoshua, who's the Mekel opinion, right? Rabbi Yossi says even Rabbi Yoshua, who's the Mekel opinion, says that you're allowed to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya, but not truma tahora with truma tmeya. So we see that Rabbi Yossi also understands that, Rabbi Yoshua that way. So the Gemara answers, Hachi kamer Rabbi Yossi le Rabbi Meir. This is what Rabbi Yossi was responding to Rabbi Meir. Afilu Reb Shimon v'alibud Rabbi Yoshua de Mekel. No, what he's saying is that even Reb Shimon's opinion, who explains that Rabbi Yoshua says that you're allowed to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya, and he's lenient in that respect. Ki mekel b'tluya, but that's only as far as tluya goes. Truma that you're uncertain if it's tahor or tamei. Aval b'torah v'tmeya lo. But even Reb Shimon's explanation of Rabbi Yoshua does not go as far as to say that you'd be allowed to burn truma tahora with truma tmeya. No. And that was Rabbi Yossi's response to Reb Meir. But Rabbi Yossi himself assumes that you would be unable to burn truma tluya with truma tmeya. Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina Rami Truma Apischa Umishani. Okay? Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina asked the question from truma in general to truma on Erev Pesach Umishani, and he answers. Miyam Rabbi Yeshua Shtein Ka'achas. So does Rabbi Yeshua really say that truma on Erev Pesach you can burn truma tahora with truma tluya with truma tmeya? V'aminu, we have a kasha. Chavis shel truma shenolad ba safek tuma. Again, a situation that we've seen before. If you have a barrel of truma that all of a sudden you're not sure if maybe it's tahor or tamei. So Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer, if this barrel that now you're not sure if it's tamei or not, if it was in a hefker place, be sure to put it in a safe place because you still have to guard it. Right? As it says, Mishmeres trumosai. You have to guard my trumas, plural. That includes whether it's tahor or whether it's safek tahor, safek tamei, you still have to guard it. If it was opened, if it was revealed, so close it up because you have to guard it. If the barrel was in a safe place, you could just make it hefker at this point since it's a safek. And if it was covered up, you can uncover it, you could reveal it. Grama in, v'yadayim lo. So we see that you'd only be allowed to cause it to become tamei. You can't mamish be mitami it, right? So here's the question. On the one hand, our Mishnah seems to be saying that according to Rabbi Yoshua, you could burn truma tluya with truma tmeya, yet, right, and by doing so be mitami this truma tluya. Yet in this brisa we see that there was this barrel that we were unsure if it's tahor or tamei, and Rabbi Yeshua didn't say that you're just allowed to simply be metamei it. He said you could put it out in the open and whatever happens, happens. It's a grama. Maybe it'll lead to it becoming tamei, but he didn't say that you can be metamei it mamish. So Mishani, Rabbi Lazar answers, Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina answers, Harab Shimon ali b'Rabbi Yeshua, Harab Yosef ali b'Rabbi Yeshua. So the same way we answered before, that our Mishnah that says, that alleges that Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is that you can burn truma tluya with truma tamei. That is Rabbi Shimon explaining Rabbi Yeshua, whereas this other brisa is Rabbi Yossi explaining Rabbi Yeshua, and that's why he says that you wouldn't be able to mamish be metamei the truma tluya. Rabbi Lazar rami truma mishani. Now Rabbi Lazar asks a kasha of truma on truma, and he answers, V'amar Rabbi Yeshua grama in biyadayim lo. Did Rabbi Yeshua really say that you'd only be allowed to cause this truma tluya to become tamei, but you wouldn't be allowed to be mamish metamei it? But listen to this. This is also brayso we've seen before. V'raminu chavis shel truma shenishba begas ha'elyona. If you have a barrel of truma and it was on the top part of the wine press, and then it broke, and it's gonna go down, and it's going to fall down into the bottom part of the wine press. V'tachtea chulin tmein, and in the bottom part of the wine press there is chulin, but it's tamei. So the problem is you have this truma. Now, if it falls into the chulin tmein, then you can't eat it anymore because it'll be tamei. Now, you're allowed to eat chulin that's tamei. So technically, you can, right? There's nothing wrong with this chulin right now. But once it gets mixed together with the truma, you wouldn't be allowed to eat it anymore if you're not a kohen, because you can't eat truma. But even if you are a kohen, you wouldn't be allowed to eat it because it's tamei now. So, what do you do? So, Modet, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. So both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua admit, Shem yachol atzam imen revius b'tara yatzil. Well, if you can save even a revius worth of this upper barrel in a pure vessel, well then do that. Whatever falls into the bottom will fall into the bottom and become, mixed with the chulin tmein. There's not much you could do about that, but whatever you could salvage in the pure vessels. But what if you don't have pure vessels? Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, well there's nothing you can do. You can't just take tamei vessels and be metamei this truma barrel, on your own, right? To just take kalim and catch the truma from the top barrel and be metamei it yourself, even though it's ultimately just going to fall into the bottom pit, which is full of chulin tmein anyways. But still, you can't do it yourself. You just have to let it fall and become tamei on its own. Rabbi Yeshua Omer says, Rabbi Yeshua yitamena biyad, that you're allowed to be metamei it with your hand. You're allowed to, like mamish, just take tamei vessels and receive the truma from the barrel on top, and be metamei the truma. So what do we see? So we see that your mamish being metamei truma biyad, like your mamish being metamei truma. So then, why is he saying that, in that other case that we had, that only a grama, right? You're not sure if you have this barrel full of stuff and you're not sure if it's tamei or not. So you're allowed to leave it out and whatever happens, happens. What do you mean? We just saw that when you have this barrel, you're allowed to mamish take tamei vessels and receive the truma from the top barrel. So Mashani Shani Osam Dik Efsir Chulin. So the Gemara says, yeah, but that was different because we're concerned that, because if the truma from the barrel falls into the bottom part of the wine press where there's this chulin tmein, which is edible, you're allowed to eat tamei chulin. So, when the truma falls in, it's going to ruin it. So therefore, Rabbi Yoshua says that you'd be allowed to take tamei vessels and be metamei the truma to prevent it from falling into the chulin in order to salvage the chulin. But just stam, you wouldn't be allowed to be metamei the truma. Maskifla Rava, but Rava asked the kasha, Masnisa nami ikehefsed eitzim. But also in our Mishnah, we should say that you can burn the truma together with the truma Torah, together with the truma tamei. I assume it's talking about truma Torah because over here Rabbi Yoshua is talking about being metamei the truma Torah in order to save the chulin that's on the bottom. So I guess, in our Mishnah also, if you burn the truma tahora or the tluya in separate fires than the truma tamei, well then you're wasting wood. So why don't you burn it all together in order to salvage and save the trees? Abai says to Rav, left said meruba chashashu, left said muad lo chashashu. Look, we're concerned about significant hefsid, significant loss, such as this wine that's in the bottom of the wine press. You're going to lose all of it if the truma falls into it. So in order to save all of that wine in the wine press, we say you're allowed to be matami the truma before it hits the wine in the bottom part of the wine press, since it's going to become tamei anyway, so you could be matami it before you could preempt it before it hits the wine at the bottom. But just to save a little bit of wood, it's not a big deal. Just make the separate fires. Where am I? No, where am I? Now, how do we know this concept? How do we know that we're concerned about losing a lot? We're not so concerned about losing a little. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brayso, chavis shel shemen truma shenishbra b'gas huel yona. What if you had oil, right? Let's say instead of wine, we're not talking about wine, we're talking about oil. There was a barrel of oil on the top of this wine press, and there was oil on the bottom of the wine press. The oil on top was truma. The oil on the bottom was chulin tamei. So we say uv'tachtonu chulin tamei. Fine. Moder Rabbi Eliezer the Rabbi Yoshua. So it says that Rabbi Eliezer admits to Rabbi Yoshua, but I think I saw somewhere that doesn't really make sense, and we're going to have to switch that around, because really it should be that Rabbi Yoshua admits to Rabbi Eliezer shem yochel lahatzam mimenu revius b'tayra yatzil. That okay, so if you're able to save even a revius of it in tower kalim, so then save it. Don't worry about the oil becoming tamei. The truma mixing together with the tamei chulin. Don't worry about it. If you could salvage even a revius of it with tower kalim, so do it. V'imla, but if there's no tower kalim around, only tamei kalim, well, even Rabbi Yoshua would admit tered v'titame v'ayitam biyad. In this case, let the oil mix together with the chulin on the bottom and create one big mess, but do not take the tamei kalim and be matame this truma before it hits the chulin tamei. Now the question is, ma'ashna shemen period. And the assumption being that the reason why Rabbi Yoshua says that by the wine you could take the tamei kalim and be matame the truma, thereby salvaging the chulin tamein on the bottom, that is because chulin tamein is very expensive. Because this wine is very expensive. And if the truma falls into this tamei wine, which you're allowed to drink, but when the truma falls into it, you won't be allowed to drink it anymore, and you're going to lose all that wine. So therefore we're saying, Rabbi Yoshua is saying, you're allowed to take a kli and be matame the truma in order to save the wine, because it's a significant loss. But oil isn't such a significant loss, because you can always use it for kindling. You can always burn, you can always light a fire with it, even if it's truma tamei. And therefore, that we're suggesting that is why Rabbi Yoshua is saying that by the oil you cannot be matame the truma, you just have to let it fall into the chulin tamein, because it's not such a big deal, because you can always just kindle with it anyways, and therefore we see a precedent for being concerned about big losses but not small losses. But now the Gemara questions that. One second. Ma'ashna shemen. Wait, why are we saying that shemen wouldn't be such a big loss? Teroy lahadlik, because you can kindle with it, so therefore it's not like it's unsalvageable, even if it becomes tamei. Yain nami roy leziluv. Well, wine also, you could sprinkle with it for its aromas. And if you're going to say, well, sprinkling wine for aromas isn't such a big thing, guess what? Think again. It is a big thing. That drinking wine, okay, so that's wine that you buy for a sela. But the sprinkling fragrance wine, you want to use wine that's twice as expensive. That's 2 selas. So, if you knew, so we see that just like you can kindle with the oil, so you should also be able to sprinkle with the wine. So how come the difference is? So Gemara says b'chadash. Well, because the wine is talking about new wine, young wine that doesn't smell so great, and therefore, because it doesn't smell so great, you can't sprinkle with it, and you're just going to lose it completely, and that's why you can save it. V'aroi liyashno. Okay, so maybe it doesn't smell so gishmak now, but just age it, and then it'll be really gishmak. So asi belide takala. Well, we're concerned that if you age it and you keep it around, you might end up drinking it. Well, shemenami asi belide takala. But the oil also. Why shouldn't we be concerned that if you keep it around to burn it, you might end up using it? Duramile b'chli maos. Well, the oil you put in some kind of disgusting vessel, and therefore you're not going to end up using it and eating it. Okay, but still, just take the young wine, put it in some kind of disgusting kli, and then wait until it becomes really fragrant, and then sprinkle it. So why are we so concerned that we're just going to have to lose all of this wine? So the zilav karbaile b'chli maos ramile, to which the Gemara says, wait, what do you mean? This doesn't make sense. You want to age this wine so it could smell really great and be really fancy, and you're going to put it in some disgusting kli? You're not going to get the results that you were wishing for. Alright, we're going to stop over here, and we'll pick up from here tomorrow, and we will wrap up Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim. How's it been going how's it been going for everybody, Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim? I feel like I'm ready to get back to like Pesachim and Yonim. Look, Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim, it's famous. It's not easy. It's hard. It's hard stuff. But this isn't like, this is, everyone knows that in Pesachim, as geshmak as Pesachim is, you're going to have that very challenging sugya of Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim for a week at the end of the first parak, and we're just about on the other side. So that was the Chaf of Masechta Pesachim. So we discussed Kodashim meat becoming tamei. How does it become mukhshar l'kabel tumah? We gave a few suggestions. Ultimately, we said, well, maybe the animal was kind of grazing by some water before you killed it, and then some of the water was still on the animal and it got on the meat. Okay. More rishon, sheni, shlishi stuff, right? We had a Tana we taught in front of Sheshes, like a sheretz being tamei mashkin, being tamei kli, then ochel, then mashkin. In the end, we just said it was a sheretz being tamei kli, which was tamei ochel, tamei mashkin. The mashkin be a shlishi, that could be a kiva. Okay, we discussed that when you have an oven full with the sheretz dangling in there, it's not as though the oven is full with tumah. Rather, the oven becomes tamei, and then it's metame the ochel to be a sheni, which is why it's not metame kalim, because kalim can only be metame from an avatuma, but the oven is only a rishon l'tumah. Fine. Then we had a few different questions about Rabbi Yeshua's opinion regarding burning truma tluya with truma tmeya. We ended up having a distinction between Reb Shimon and Reb Yossi on the matter. Reb Shimon says that according to Reb Yeshua, you can burn truma tluya with truma tmeya. According to Reb Yossi, you cannot. Okay. Yeah, those were really, we kind of brought up a few sugyas that we had learned throughout the course of the week. But Chaver, I look forward to wrapping up the first parak of Masechta Pesachim with you tomorrow, along with the illustrious sugya of Reb Chanina's Kana Kohanim. Cheers.